Brady Anderson baseball card.
Who cares? Brady Anderson is nothing to me.
Sabrina, how could you say such a thing?
I'm in a bad mood.
Hey, I know what'll cheer you up. Flan,
Flan?
the happy dessert. Everyone loves the custardy goodness of a wiggly jiggly flan.
You can have my share. I just want to be left alone.
But flan!
Sugar, oh honey, you are my candy girl, and you got me wanting you, honey, oh sugar, you are my candy girl, and you got me wanting you.
Ladies, gentlemen, Winty, welcome to episode number 14 of Sabrina's Witch Trials. I'm Alex Araujo, and of course this is the show where each week we venture back into the mid-1990s to rewatch, review, and reminisce all about everybody's favorite Friday night spellfest, Sabrina, the Teenage Witch. Folks, it's going to be an exciting one for a lot of reasons here this week on The Witch Trials, because not only is it the first episode of the new year, Happy New Year everybody, it is also the very first time I am flying solo, for many reasons, one of which I couldn't wrangle anybody in this week, but also I have been wanting to try just doing an episode of my own and seeing if I crumble into just a pool of sad human flesh after about 20 minutes. I assume it's going to be a little bit harder, but you guys are listening to it, so you'll find out in about half an hour if I'm crying in the corner. Everything obviously went just fine. It's also a very special episode of Sabrina's Witch Trials because this is probably one of everyone's most remembered episodes of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I mean, it's not like there's a lot of hilarious jokes in it, but there is one big visual that everyone will remember for the rest of their lives. And watching it back, there is one guest star who really maybe should have been held off until after the show was canceled and never brought on at all, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But first, I do want to wish everybody a Happy New Year, as I said. I know everyone really, really, really loved 2016 for just so many reasons, but let's hope 2017 is at least as good, if not infinitely better than last year. I also want to remind everybody at home that I want you guys to be watching with me. You know, this will be more fun for you if you understand all the terrible jokes I'm going to make about Brady Anderson sideburns in a few minutes. So if you do want to watch the episode we talk about before you listen to it, there's a lot of places you can do it. First and foremost, you can watch it on Amazon, where I do. You can also watch it on Hulu. CBS All Access also has it. All of these Sabrina the Teenage Witch episodes are there. And, of course, DVDs, but who has physical media anymore? It's 2017. I also have to get used to saying 2017 now, because we're in that, first month transition where everybody writes and says 2016. It's going to be real fun. And one last thing. As I do start every episode of Sabrina's Witch Trials by asking my guests to describe the episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch we watched in a certain number of words, it's kind of hard for me to surprise myself with a unexpected number. But luckily, through the magic of dice, I really hope that's coming across on the recording, but I do have a set of dice here. I'm just going to roll them, and then I will force myself to describe this episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch in whatever number it comes up. I guess this is the revenge of every guest I've ever had who's been surprised at the last second, totally forgot, and had to come up with it, with a description in a couple of seconds. But let's go here. Let's see what we got. I'm rolling dice, really rolling them to get a good number here. Okay, I got 9. Let's see. It's not the worst. It could have been 3. There may be some air cut out here while I think of this description. Okay, here we go. Sabrina goes to a mirror dimension, dessert served afterwards. I believe that's 9, let's hope, because if not, I'm going to look like a right dick. But Yeah, dessert is one of the key components of this episode, almost shockingly important to this episode. A lot of stuff actually goes on in this episode. I mean, I described it last episode as an episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch where nothing happens for the first 16 minutes and then there's one really interesting thing at the end. And watching it back, a lot of stuff actually happens. The problem is some of it is fun, some of it is great, and then there's like the second act just really falls flat for me, but we'll get into that in a minute here. Episode 14 of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Sabrina Through the Looking Glass. First aired January 17th, 1997, 16.5 million viewers when it aired, a 9.8 rating, a 17 share, and the 36th most viewed piece of television on broadcast TV that given week. We open on the Spellman clan's bodies distorted in various uncomfortable positions. No, this is not one of my fan fictions that I write in my spare time. It's just Zelda teaching the others some yoga. Sabrina and Hilda basically suck at it, of course, while Zelda excels, and Hilda just gets all jealous about her far more flexible sister.
This is no fun.
You don't enjoy yoga. You don't have to do it.
It's easy for you to say. You're winning.
They then move on to some meditation and just assume the lotus position. We get a bit of 90s yoga comedy as they start chanting Om, and Sabrina asks, what do we do now? Zelda responds that they should empty their minds, which Hilda has covered. As Zelda tells them to lighten their loads, Sabrina, of course, begins to levitate as she chants, eventually floating up to the ceiling and bumping her noodle. She then makes a snarky quip about thinking this is low impact as we go to the opening theme. Okay, guys, my first thing here I want to talk about is how really incredible Beth Broderick looks in yoga gear. Now, I know I harp on this every single episode, but it was really impressive. Not only did she look great in it, and she is wearing a very Olivia Newton-John kind of let's get physical 80s, sweating to the oldies kind of gear, which she looked good in. The more impressive thing that she does here in the scene, though, is she's doing like pretty intricate yoga while also delivering lines well. I mean, at one point she's like doing a headstand and has her legs in some sort of like position. I'm not a yogi or a yogist. I assume the second one is totally wrong, but it's dramatically impressive to see somebody being able to do a headstand while also trading lines with two other actresses.
Now stretch and focus. Can you feel the blood rushing to your brain?
No, but I feel my lunch making a move.
I did also love the Olivia Newton-John attire, as I said, but I thought what was weird was Hilda and Sabrina just decided to wear like traditional South Asian outfits for no reason. I like to think that they got together before the yoga and were like, listen, we have to show Zelda we're really interested in this, so let's get our most yoga-y clothing out and we can show her how interested we are. It looked really, really weird. I kind of also didn't care for the least common denominator joke of, what do we do now? Or what do we do now? One of the good things about this series is that they write a lot of humor that is not only accessible to younger audiences, but also older viewers would appreciate. And I thought this joke kind of was aimed squarely at the 5-year-olds.
Now let's chant.
What do we do now?
And one last bit here. As far as the levitating effect actually goes, I thought it looked good, but not great, especially compared to some of the other special effects we've seen on the show in the last couple of episodes. I think the effect really wasn't done all that well. It looked like an obvious green screen. I thought the better effect was actually when she bumps her head and falls down from the air really quickly. I thought that looked really, really good. But otherwise, mediocre effect here. Let's keep going here, though. After the opening, we see the inside of Sabrina's room as she's rushing to get to school and, in her panic, accidentally knocks over her biosphere, ruining her project. To make matters worse, she immediately gets a forehead pain and, checking the mirror, discovers a half Ferrero Rocher stuck on her forehead. Stomping downstairs, she shows Salem, who teases her about her wart, as her aunt explained that it's her first one as a witch.
I don't believe this. Look! Look!
Whoa, who's your friend?
It's her first ward as a witch.
Oh, let me get the camera.
No, it's gross. How did I get it, and how can I make it go away?
Asking what the fuck to do, her aunties explain that they're usually caused by stress and will go away when she calms down. After about 6 seconds of calming down, Sabrina goes back into full freakout mode, noting that she has to do a presentation with Harvey today. Hilda tries to relieve Sabrina by telling her a story about a wart she once had, and mentions that at least she can cover her wart with a baseball cap, zapping an Orioles hat onto Sabrina's head. An Orioles hat. What an interesting and nondescript team to pick. That'll probably never come up again.
Just be glad you can cover yours with a baseball cap.
Orioles? I didn't know you were a baseball fan.
I'm not. I'm a Brady Anderson fan. He is so hot. I love those sideburns.
Yeah, I may be a house pet, but I totally see it.
Salem notes that he didn't know Hilda was an Orioles fan, and she mentions that she's a Brady Anderson fan, mentioning that she loves his fuckable sideburns. Salem then wholeheartedly agrees, giving us our first bits of guest star boning this episode. Man, if you think they weren't going to say everything nice they possibly could about Brady Anderson, you're dead wrong. Sabrina asks if she can just make a snow day, noting that she fucked up her project and magic won't fix it. Zelda tells her that it can't be fixed because it's encased in number 7 plastic, which repels magic. But she still has to go to school. They then send her to school, grumbling, "Great, great, great."
Great, great, great.
That's a spirit.
I was being sarcastic.
At school, Jenny approaches an agitated Sabrina, asking if she can talk to her about a burning question, but Sabrina shuts her down because she's got to meet Harvey in the library. As she leaves Jenny, Mr. Poole runs up to Sabrina, noting that he didn't know she was an Orioles fan as she's still wearing that wonderful, wonderful Orioles hat. He then adds that he bets Brady Anderson hits another 50 home runs this season, which Sabrina notes would be great, great, great.
Great, great, great.
Okay, guys. First thing here. As I mentioned, when the scene opens, Sabrina knocks over her biosphere. The way she does it makes me think that Sabrina has no hand-eye coordination whatsoever, because she doesn't so much knock it over as she lobs it as if she's trying to knock it over a tennis net. It's quite the underhand serve Sabrina had here. Just smack the damn thing right across the room. Also, I mean, I guess you could blame this on magic, but the wart just appears. It's as if somebody slingshotted a piece of chocolate and smacked her in the forehead with it. It's like she sells the pain for a second, and then she moves her hand away, and it's full wart. I assume that's how it happens in the other realm, but I never had a teenage experience like this, and I had a fair bit of facial blemishes, as you can probably assume. I did actually like the whole number 7 plastic repelling magic thing. I mean, I thought it was just a fun throwaway bit of world building here.
Everything's going wrong. Look, I even broke my biosphere. My magic won't fix it.
Oh, I bet it's number 7 plastic. Repels magic and it can't be recycled.
I do think it's also hilarious that Salem, who had this whole plot of world domination through magic, could have easily been stopped by just a regular $20 set of Tupperware. Just you put him in it, and then he's done. War over. There was another thing that has to be mentioned, that being the shirt that Caroline Rhea is wearing in these scenes. It is shockingly, shockingly bad. I described it as an abhorrent button-down with window panes, just a bunch of boxes all over her shirt, each of which has either just a blinding bit of 90s neon or black and white checkers in it. You can't even imagine it. This is one of the things that you have to go to either Sabrina Witch Trials Twitter account, Facebook account, Instagram account, little plug there, folks, and see, because it is unfathomable that anyone would create such a top. I mean, there must have been a cursed sewing machine or something involved when this thing was made. It's just shocking. And as I said, we do get our first bits of Brady Anderson butthole licking here. I mean, between Hilda talking about how she wants to just rail him and Mr. Poole saying how he makes Joe DiMaggio look like a arthritic granny, I was shocked at just how much they were talking up this one relatively obscure baseball player. I mean, I know he was very successful in 1996, which makes sense as to why he's on the show in early 97. But if you weren't a baseball fan in the mid-90s, and I wasn't, you have no idea who Brady Anderson is now, or probably even when you were watching this originally.
Good morning, Sabrina. Hey, you're an Orioles fan.
What? Oh, yeah.
Love that Brady Anderson. Bet he hits another 50 homers this year, huh?
Wouldn't that be great?
It seemed like they were just trying to book him when they started filming, as opposed to have booked him in advance, you know? They were really throwing the charm on him real hard. All right, let's get back to it, though. In the library, Sabrina bemoans the fact that Harvey is late. Late. Just then, Harvey walks up, and she gives him shit for making her wait. Wait. None of this is actually true. I think it's fun. He then explains that his bus was late. I'm not going to do it. Before complimenting Sabrina's hat again and asking to try it on. She, wanting to hide her wart, turns him down and shows him her project, explaining that her jar of dirt illustrates the devastation created by greedy timber companies.
Okay, let me show you what I made for our project. Now, first, this biosphere is going to show how the rainforest is a perfect self-supporting ecosystem. But I dropped it. So now it shows the devastation caused by greedy timber companies.
Harvey rightfully calls it just a jar of dirt, but Sabrina retorts that it's called deforestation. Harvey then says that he has something to show her, the last of the spider monkeys, but you can call him Marty, a monkey puppet. Marty says hi, as Harvey explains that he helps give extinction a voice and a name. And Sabrina here does a hilarious job of just saying, Marty? Really wonderfully confused.
Marty?
Harvey then goes into some pretty impressive puppetry as Marty highlights his prehensile tail, but Sabrina just says that she hates this idea. He mentions how Mr. Poole will love it, but she says that they're sticking with the jar of dirt. Sorry, biosphere. Wink. In class, as the biosphere is passed around, Sabrina tells the class that they can see what Sting is so upset about. But Libby notes that it's literally just a jar of dirt. That's all it is, Sabrina. You're fooling no one. Harvey, after hearing Sabrina say, "What's the point?" angrily, effortlessly transitions into his puppet, noting that the rainforest is home to many creatures, including spider monkeys.
Did someone say spider monkey? Who are you? I'm Marty, the rainforest spokesmonkey.
Delightful.
Harvey, put the monkey down.
Though Sabrina tries to stop him, Mr. Poole is just elated with all this and turns into like a 5-year-old child as Marty starts his story, eventually ending with the phrase, "Weep for the fate of the earth." So obviously it takes quite a turn there. Mr. Poole then loves all of this, and while Libby mocks them, Mr. Poole gives them literally a standing ovation by himself as the class ends.
All right, read chapter 27. And how about a big hand for Harvey and Sabrina, huh?
All right, a lot of fun stuff here, guys. I might have made it sound like I didn't like the Marty stuff, but I literally think everything that happens with this fucking monkey puppet is not only adorable, but also hilarious. From the fact that Harvey thinks that this is what's going to improve their project, to his ridiculous yet adorable monkey voice, and particularly the fact that Melissa Joan Hart's acting here is perfect because you see Sabrina realizing, one, Harvey's an idiot, and two, my God, I'm really crushing hard on this idiot. I think it's all gold.
The point is, he lives in the rainforest. He has credibility. Watch.
See my prehensile tail? It's a feature found only in New World monkeys.
I'm trying to like it. I'm making every effort. I hate it.
And it also hit me here. Greenpeace would be really well served to hire Nate Richard to do their commercials, because I know that Paul Feig would at least be donating like hundreds of dollars just watching this, going, my God, that puppet knows so much. He does need our help. The other thing that makes Marty great is that, as I said, Mr. Poole falls in love with the idea of this puppet right away. I mean, if Marty was to ask him to drink paint, I'm pretty sure he would, just go down to the local Home Depot and pick up a bucket of it. He is enthralled. And I mean, touching on fashions here again, I would be remiss if I didn't mock whatever the hell Harvey was wearing in these scenes. The character of Harvey is somebody who I remember being fairly well dressed, but man, in this first season, he has a couple of far misses, and this one was one of them. He's wearing a Charlie Sheen 2.5 Men style like bowling shirt, or I guess, is it a bowling shirt? Is it a golf shirt? I don't know what it's one of those shirts that Charlie Sheen wore all the time in 2.5 Men, but it's mostly navy, and the inside design is photorealistic dice, like red dice. I mean, I know I use them to for the description here, but I'm not the biggest fan of dice in clothing. I don't know what's going on with like Harvey. I don't know if it's like this is why he hates his father, because he makes him wear these ridiculous shirts sometimes, but man, Sabrina must really love this Harvey character if she's willing to put up with puppetry and hideous shirts. Back to the episode, however. Outside of class, Sabrina tells Harvey how he embarrassed her as Libby walks by asking if they know how to get to Sesame Street. He tells her that Mr. Poole liked it, but she says, like I care what Mr. Poole thinks, before telling him that, like every irritated girl, she needs sugar. Marty asks if he can join her, but she tells them that she'd rather just eat alone. We then go to lunch where Sabrina sits alone, eating 3 puddings while reading a copy of The Bell Jar, as Jenny walks up worried about her sanity. She asks Sabrina if she wants to talk about it, but she just changes the subject to Jenny's question from earlier. And Jenny feels, she says, as though people have been ignoring her lately, and that she's been considering cutting her hair just to shake things up, but that it's a big decision. Sabrina basically gives 0 fucks about all this, and eventually tells Jenny to go on before literally using magic to mute her friend, allowing her to eat her chocolatey dessert in peace.
Sometimes I feel like I'm a prisoner of my own curls.
Really? That's fascinating. Please go on.
Wow. When people see my hair, they think...
Just then, Libby comes up, noting that she actually did have a question about Sabrina's presentation, but shockingly, it's all a ruse, as she just wanted to rip the Orioles cap off of her head, in turn, revealing the big wart on Sabrina's forehead. Libby is just a mix of jubilant and disgusted here. Jubilant because I made Sabrina look like an idiot, disgusted because what the fuck is that growing off the side of your head? But Sabrina just runs out of the cafeteria furious and embarrassed, eventually creating a snowstorm to cause a snow day. As she does this, a cocky Libby walks up to her saying that she forgot her hat, but Sabrina reminds her that she's a goat, and then zaps her into a goat.
Hey, Wartface, forgot your hat.
And you forgot you're a goat.
Now, go climb a mountain.
After telling Libby to go climb a mountain, Sabrina angrily zaps her locker door open, breaking it, before heading home. At home, Sabrina blows in with a storm and gives Hilda the weather report, adding the up-to-the-minute goat coverage that so few networks actually still provide. When Zelda asks what's wrong with her, Sabrina does a honestly beautiful job of laying out all of her problems, explaining all the reasons why she has to be upset, before heading upstairs, as Salem notes that at least she has thumbs and a door on her bathroom. Two things that people should really appreciate more. They also work well together, having thumbs and a door on the bathroom, because otherwise you'd be trapped in your bathroom like I once was as a child. But that's a story for a different time. Looking at these two scenes, the first thing that smacked me in the head like a Ferrero Rocher being slingshotted into my forehead was how, even though Sabrina has every right to be angry, as she illustrates, or a lot of reasons to be angry, I should say, she is a huge jerk to Jenny. Like, she's literally her only girlfriend, and yet she mutes her so she can eat pudding after she tells her what she's been feeling ignored. What a bitch. My God. I mean, it often doesn't get said enough. The character of Sabrina is a real jerk. I did appreciate also that Jenny was really worried about Sabrina seeing her read the bell jar, because after 5 minutes of Googling what the hell the bell jar was, I was worried for her. I mean, apparently it's a book where, like, every possible bad thing happens to the protagonist before she becomes suicidal and goes insane. Like, she apparently, the protagonist, Esther Greenwood, very nice name. Everything bad happens to her. She almost gets raped, or she does get raped. She tries to lose her virginity, but the guy turns her down. She goes to New York to work at a newspaper, I think, and it doesn't go well. Everything bad happens, and then she eventually becomes suicidal. If your friend is reading this book now, I would check in on them. I would make sure that they're not also eating pudding, because that's bad news as a combination. In these scenes, we also get another entry into the great catalog of Libby turning into other things. Top 3, Libby turning into other things. Number 3 is, of course, Libby turning into a pineapple. Number 2, Libby turning into a goat. And my personal favorite, which we will see either next season, I think it's next season, season 2, Libby turns into a jigsaw puzzle. So look for that one. To be fair, though, Jenna Lee Green does do a great Mean Girl performance, does have a great Mean Girl performance in this episode. I really do like the scene where she's removing the baseball cap. It really is a hateable character that she creates here.
Hey, Sabrina.
Libby, what do you want?
You know, I forgot. There was something I wanted to ask you about your project.
Yeah?
If the Earth's tropical forests are being wiped out at a rate of 67 acres a minute, then how come you're wearing that stupid hat? Give it back! What is that?
I also honestly loved the scene where Melissa Joan Hart is just explaining all of the reasons that Sabrina has to be angry. I mean, she is a witch living in the mortal realm. She also does have to be a teenager, and she has to be a teenage girl, all of which are probably complicated. I can speak to one of them, the girl, but all of these things combined would cause anyone a lot of stress, and I think laying out that argument made the character of Sabrina far more three-dimensional, which I loved, and also really more relatable, because you start to understand why she's a bitch to Jenny all the time, I guess.
Come talk to me. What's the matter?
What's the matter? I have to be a witch, I have to be immortal, I have to be a teenager, and I have to be a girl, all at the same time. That's what's the matter.
But in all honesty, super relatable, not only for teenage girls of the time, but for podcasters in their 20s now. Anyway, we now head back as Sabrina heads upstairs and encounters Hilda, who's just dying to show her one of her most treasured possessions, that being her fucking Brady Anderson baseball card. Sabrina rightfully notes that Brady Anderson means nothing to her before explaining that she's just in a bad mood. Hilda says she knows exactly what will cheer her up. Flan! Yep, it's that episode. Sabrina then says that she just wants to be alone before heading into her room, leaving Hilda to just say, "But Flan!" In her room, Sabrina starts talking to herself in the mirror, all about how awful her wart looks, and to her surprise, the mirror starts to agree with her. Sabrina eventually confesses to Mirror Sabrina that she's sick of other people trying to cheer her up, and she just wants to be left alone. Mirror Sabrina tells her that she can hang out in here, the mirror, and eventually, after some really subpar CGI, she enters the mirror world of her room, where everything is backwards.
Everyone keeps trying to make me feel better, and I just want to be left alone, you know what I mean? You could come in here. No one will disturb you. Can I do that? Sure. Step right through. Cool. Wow, everything's flipped around. Okay, door. Wrong. Door. And my desk is over there.
She soon figures out the layout and starts to relax with a Neat Neves magazine. Get it? It's 17 backwards. You see what they did there? They took the word 17 and then they turned it around, and then it's Neat Neves. Downstairs, a tummy-rumbling Hilda asks Zelda what's for dinner, and a busy Zelda tells her whatever comes out of the end of her finger. Gross. Hilda tells her that she knows what she has a hankering for. No, not Brady Anderson. Flan, before zapping in a wiggly plate. Zelda tells her to ask Sabrina what she wants for dinner, but Hilda says no way is she sticking her head in that lion's den, and after a quick argument about who will go check on their testy teen, the whole family decides to go together. When they knock on her door, they get no response, leading them to assume that she's just asleep. However, upon entering Sabrina's room, Salem spots how cloudy the mirror is, and the aunties put together that Sabrina must have passed through the looking glass.
She's not here.
Where did she go?
I have no idea.
Mayday, the mirror.
Sabrina must have passed through the looking glass.
Oh no! She's trapped in her own bad mood.
After a break, Hilda tries to spot Sabrina, but the mirror is too cloudy, and Zelda knows that only Sabrina can get herself out of her bad mood. First thing here, guys, while I don't actually enjoy flan as a dessert, I think it's kind of gross and eggy. I mean, maybe I just haven't had the best flans in the world, but I would rather have a cake. I do actually really enjoy how everyone in the Sabrina-verse seems to think that the most amazing thing since Brady Anderson is flan. Hilda is especially great at it. Like, it's not only the, quote, happy dessert to her, but she's so dumbstruck when Sabrina doesn't want flan that all she can muster to say is, but flan. It's really fun. I also really like the initial idea of the mirror as a universe, being able to go through the mirror and everything being backwards. It's a really interesting use of the existence of magic again in this show, which sometimes uses magic really uncreatively. I think it provides a lot of fun jokes, just the stuff being backwards, but we'll get into how the mirror universe is used going forward in a little while, because there's one really confusing scene to me that made no sense. That said, while I did like the actual idea behind the Mirrorverse, if you will, the actual effect of her walking through, as I said, did not look good. It was actually pretty bad. I mean, they kind of do a liquidy thing where Melissa Joan Hart reaches her hand into the mirror and, the mirror turns almost liquid. Though the T1000, this was not. It looked pretty janky. However, using the clouds to illustrate that Sabrina was in the Mirrorverse, I thought was a smart bit of editing or CGI, just because it not only in the storyline shows her aunts what's going on, it reminds the viewers that, well, she walked through. She's not in her room anymore. It's a different place. I did really also like the Neat Neves magazine joke. I think it was a little clever inclusion. I'm not going to try and read Tiger Beat backwards because there's too many vowels in it, but I will give you 41J, which is J14 backwards. You can have that one on the house, folks. Anyway, getting back, as they head downstairs, that being Hilda and Zelda, Hilda notes that she hopes their counterparts in the Mirrorverse aren't jerks, before giving us a funny story about once being trapped in her own resentment. Back in the mirror world, Sabrina awakes the next day refreshed and wartless, and after a quick change into a beautiful blue dress, she decides to head back home. Upon trying this, she finds that she's unable to, as Mirror Sabrina tells her that she wanted to be left alone, and now she's stuck in the mirror universe, eventually disappearing, the Mirror Sabrina does, with a cackly laugh.
There. Well, thanks for everything. I better get home and go to school. Hey, what's going on? You're stuck. Remember, you wanted to be left alone. Oh no! Help me!
A frightened Sabrina freaks out for a second, for literally 1 second, before, through the beams of sunlight, walks in Jesus of Nazareth. Sorry, Brady Anderson, doing an awful I got it joke. Get ready for like 50 more of these lazy baseball references here, folks. Brady says that he doesn't know if he should help Sabrina, as she said that he was nothing to her, but she says she didn't mean it and that she was just in a bad mood and that everyone was annoying her. Brady then basically says that maybe you're the problem, asshole, before going into a discussion about stress. Brady Anderson gets the terrible idea of comparing stress levels with a teenage girl. He, of course, loses, but he tells Sabrina that the trick is learning to keep one's emotions in check. And he lets her know that if she wants to go back home, first she has to make amends with the people that she was rude to.
Okay. First thing you have to do is make amends.
Easy, I'll just tell everyone I'm sorry. Oh, and I'll turn Libby back from a goat.
Good, you got a game plan.
She agrees to apologize to everyone and change Libby back from her goat persona, and Brady compliments her on her game plan. If you're keeping track at home, that's 2 bad baseball references from Brady Anderson. He then opens the previously unopenable door out of her room, noting that he did it by choking up on the knob.
Choked up on the knob.
That's 3 baseball references. And just as a side note, Brady Anderson gave us a bit of audio that we can now use whenever. Like, if I was to ask Brady Anderson, hey Brady, how do breeders get semen out of angry horses?
Choked up on the knob.
Thanks, Brady. You see what I did there? I can do this for the rest of this series. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. Heading downstairs, Sabrina greets a very stressed mirror Zelda, who gives her some porridge for breakfast, and later calls her Goldilocks when Sabrina complains that it's cold. Sabrina then heads out to find Salem, finding him in the dining room and in a snit, as he sees that all his stocks are down. Down, down, down.
Good morning, Salem. Checking your stocks?
Yes, and they're all down. Down, down, down.
Well, you know, what goes down must come up.
Thank you, Louis Rukeyser. But if my stocks don't rally, I'll have to go back to dry food. Now, please, I'd like some privacy. Oh, great. Great.
Nick Mackay actually gives us some incredible snottiness here, not to mention a Louis Rukeyser reference, and Sabrina heads off to see what's up with Hilda. Okay, guys, this is where we have to start with Brady Anderson, the Laurence Olivier of the outfield. My God, I have legitimately never seen someone get a bigger guest spot on a show with less charisma or acting talent than this guy. I mean, I get it. He was a big deal in the mid-90s because, as everyone in this episode will tell us, he hit 50 home runs in one season, which broke the Orioles' home run record in 1996. That's great. But literally every line he delivers on this show is delivered without any hint of personality or excitement. It's shocking how little modulation there is in his voice. He's never excited. He's never sad. He's just at this level. He's just here constantly talking about choking up on the knob or whatever. I mean, he's probably the worst guest star we've seen so far, not only because he has no charisma, but also because, as we'll see in the next couple of scenes, he gets a lot of airtime. Like, he is not Jack Wagner popping in to hold Jenny for a second and then disappearing. He gets a good bit of lines.
Who are you?
I'm Brady Anderson.
The baseball player? You've come to help me?
I'm thinking about it, but I'm not sure. I mean, you did say I was nothing to you.
I didn't mean it. I was in a bad mood. Everyone was bugging me.
Well, if everyone was bugging you, did you consider that maybe the problem wasn't with the rest of the world? That maybe it was with you?
No. I mean, the things that happened weren't my fault. And I was under a lot of stress.
Yeah, I know about stress. Yankee Stadium, playoffs, 20 million viewers.
High school, science project, very big wart.
Okay, you win. But only because of the very big wart.
Also, I can't stand, as I said, all the fucking baseball references that are just so lazily woven in to jokes in these scenes. I mean, he tells Sabrina that she's got a game plan. He later talks about solid contact. He's choking up on the knob. They're all just so lazy and bad. I'm surprised he doesn't ask her for her bunt recipe. I mean, Jesus. It's just not funny, and most of them don't even get ADR laughs, as I sometimes complain about, but at least here, not giving them laughs makes sense because none of them are really funny. It should also be said that, Hilda mentioned Brady Anderson's sideburns earlier. My God, Brady Anderson, I thought I told you to shave those sideburns. You know I'm going to put in that Mr. Burns reference right now.
Mattingly, get rid of those sideburns.
What sideburns?
You heard me, hippie. Mattingly, for the last time, get rid of those sideburns.
Look, Mr. Burns, I don't know what you think sideburns are, but...
Don't argue with me, just get rid of them! Mattingly! I thought I told you to trim those sideburns! Go home! You're off the team for good!
Fine. Still like him better than Steinbrenner.
Something else that bothered me here, folks, I know I'm sounding a little down on this scene, but all this Brady Anderson stuff really annoyed me, so it made me note other things that really annoyed me. One of them being, why the fuck does Reflection Sabrina or Mirror Sabrina become all evil and cackly when Sabrina tries to leave? It's never brought up again. It's not like it's part of the plot that her reflection is trying to steal her identity or exit through the mirror into the real world. That would be a more interesting story. The mirror just laughs at her, tells her she's trapped, and is never touched on ever again. It made no sense. That being said, I do love how over-the-top irritable everyone is at Sabrina, especially Zelda. It's fun to see a character like Zelda's, which is usually really considerate of other people's feelings and really trying to take care of others, just turning the jerk up to 11. I mean, now we'll have to wait until Jezebelda to see it again, and I, for one, think we need more angry Zelda in these episodes.
Good morning.
Do you mind? I'm working on an article.
Sorry, I just wanted to get some breakfast.
There, have some porridge.
Thanks. Oh, it's cold.
I'm sorry, Goldilocks. The kitchen is closed.
Okay, I'll just go look for the others.
Unsurprisingly, when Sabrina goes to check on Mirror Dimension Hilda, she's also under the weather. By which I mean under a literal rain cloud. Get it? She's depressed. Sabrina just makes her way out of there as quickly as possible, as Hilda notes that at least the living room drought is over. At near Westbridge, Jenny asks if Sabrina can talk, and Sabrina notes that she's all ears. Evidently, so is Jenny, as for some reason she got a hideous Marcia Clark-style haircut, and blames Sabrina because, as a friend, she should have stopped her. Jenny tells Sabrina she's not talking to her anymore and that her life is over, but Sabrina provides her with the great perspective that hair grows, a phrase which will quickly become Jenny's mantra.
Jenny, what you need is some perspective, okay? First of all, it looks good. No, it looks better than good. It looks fine. And second, it's gonna grow out.
That's right, I forgot. Hair grows.
Yeah, now just keep saying that and you'll feel better.
Hair grows. Hair grows.
Now I've gotta go find Harvey. You wanna have lunch?
Okay.
Good. Oh,
Hair grows. Hair grows.
In the library, Sabrina finds Mirror Harvey, who tells her to stay away as, after the embarrassing display he put on with Marty yesterday, nobody should be seen with him. Sabrina tells him Marty was cute and that she was just in a bad mood the day before. When she asks where Marty is, Harvey says on the floor, explaining that they had a fight as Sabrina picks him up. She then proceeds to put on a puppet show to cheer Harvey up, which, since he really has the mind of a 5-year-old, totally works.
oh no. Marty, are you okay?
I'm fine, but I'm worried about my friend Harvey.
Well, let's go see if we can cheer him up.
Hey, Harvey.
What, Marty?
Sabrina's sorry, very sorry. And she thanks you for saving her butt.
Didn't.
You know, he is kind of cute.
And he's the reason we got an A?
Well, when you put it that way, I feel kind of bad that I ripped his eyes out.
Hey, Marty's used to tragedy.
As Harvey admits to feeling bad for ripping out Marty's eye, Sabrina spies a goat eating another student's homework and remembers Libby the goat. She eventually drags the goat into the girls' room, and after apologizing to the goat, barely, she turns Libby back into a human, explaining to her that she had just walked in to wash her hands. After making sure everything with Libby is as uncool as it usually is, she leaves Libby, who closes out the scene munching on some paper towel, which, I mean, is something we've all done once or twice in our lives. Right, folks? Right? First things first here, folks. I'm sure that Michelle Beaudoin didn't cut her hair. I'm sure it's just a wig here, but even so, honestly, some big ups, because it's 1997, to her walking around with this simply awful hair. I mean, it's shockingly bad. It's like this is where the wardrobe does a great job of going, what's the worst possible haircut for Jenny? Let's get her a wig of that hair. And speaking of looks, I thought that Harvey maybe looked his best ever in the library in this scene. If not his best, definitely his most 90s appropriate. I mean, he is dressed like the coolest mid-90s guy. He's got a dark red and green plaid shirt over a black t-shirt and a chain necklace. Well dressed for 1997. Also, his hair was spectacular. I mean, jealousy-inducing it certainly was. Also, while the whole Sabrina and Marty beef settling thing is honestly really sweet and charming, I mean, it's a great performance by Melissa Joan Hart, the overall scene itself left me with a couple of really, really weird questions. Namely, why the fuck did Harvey bring the puppet back to school? I mean, he used it the day before. If he really felt embarrassed, would he bring it back and then throw it on the ground in the library? And also, why did Harvey mutilate a monkey puppet? I don't think he's insane, but I think he's redirecting some misplaced anger about his really obviously shitty family life to this monkey. I mean, Marty is getting beat because Harvey can't explain a couple of things to his father. It's a shame, honestly, it really is. One more thing, I do actually really like the whole Libby thing, the goat Libby thing. Not really for the reasons I should, but I do like it. The guy in the library whose homework Libby starts eating just gives us a hilarious, awful delivery of, "You're eating my homework."
Hey, that's my homework! You're eating my homework!
Libby?
And just hearing Jenny Green do goat noises is always fun. But enough about goats, let's get back to the episode here, because we then see a ludicrous, honestly ridiculous sight for even an episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Brady Anderson, in an on-deck circle, in the middle of a hallway, just waiting, just staring off into the distance for Sabrina to walk into the hallway. And as she does, he notes that, "I'm up." Brady then walks up to her and explains that, unfortunately, her bad mood had a ripple effect and has spread to the entire school, including Mr. Poole, who we soon discover was stuck in the school overnight because of Sabrina's snowstorm. After he tells her about the snotty goat he kept hallucinating overnight, Sabrina puts her master plan to cheer him up into work. Basically, he just gets introduced to Brady Anderson. But he is very, very happy, so job well done. He soon asks Brady to sign his plastic brain after he hears that Brady was in town for some motivational speaking. I can't imagine anyone hiring this guy to speak motivationally about anything. In all honesty, I'm shocked that he would have any motivational speaking work at all. Sabrina then leaves as she has something else she needs to do, and we soon see Harvey and Jenny chatting in the halls, where Sabrina comes over the PA system to lazily apologize to the entire school for her bad mood, and warn everyone, or rather tell everyone, that she has a big surprise in the cafeteria. When the stampeding herd of students arrives at the cafeteria, Sabrina shows them her big surprise, a giant, Jeep-sized flan, enough for everyone. We then get a montage of kids happily eating flan to the sounds of a lazy ripoff of Shiny Happy People.
It's beautiful.
I've never seen anything like it.
It's flan, and there's enough for everyone. Have some flan.
No thanks, I'm not hungry.
Throw it away, up to the sky. Never a cause, but always a sign.
Of note, Jenny wiggle dances with a guy, by which I mean flan. I don't mean like twerking. I'm not that out of touch. And elsewhere, Sabrina offers Libby some flan, but she decides to eat the napkin instead because she still has a goat brain. Sabrina eventually arrives home, at her mirror home, and manages to tempt Zelda into not working with some leftover flan. The flan, of course, attracts everyone in the house because who doesn't like flan? As I said earlier, me. I don't like flan. As real cat Salem eats some of the flan, Sabrina runs up to her mirror bedroom and inadvertently smacks Brady Anderson with a door. This is where we get the solid contact joke.
I'm going home.
Ow. Solid contact.
God, Brady. She thanks him for all his help, and she heads back home right after he reminds her that, quote, life is a team sport. He soon reflects on how stupid a line that really is. Sabrina soon arrives home happy and refreshed from her mood lifting, and in fact gives Salem a big kiss before apologizing to her aunts about being a big jerk. They say it's okay and note that they took care of most of her mess while she was gone, including changing Libby back from her goatee persona. Alright, so a couple of really interesting scenes here, folks. Brady Anderson and his fucking on-deck circle is the first thing I want to complain about. And I know I'm doing a lot of complaining in this episode, but there are things that I like. Brady Anderson is not one of them. Why is there a fucking on-deck circle in the middle of a hallway? For those of you who don't know, an on-deck circle is where I think it's batters. I'm not the biggest baseball fan, as I said. Where waiting batters like warm up. But it's a school. No one's batting. Why is there an on-deck circle? No sense is made here. I mean, I get that the joke is, look at how unnecessary this baseball reference we're making is, but in reality, it just seems like your writer was trying to shoehorn in some more baseball references that nobody cares about. It didn't even get a laugh. It makes no sense. Also, fuck your solid contact joke, Brady Anderson. I'm glad you're gone now. While we're on the subject of bad things, which seems like this episode has a lot of, Sabrina's apology over the PA system is terrible. she literally just says, "I'm sorry," in the most insincere and like shruggy way. It literally sounds like the apology Homer has to give for calling the whole town with the autodialer when he then calls the whole town with the autodialer again. It was that insincere.
Attention students, this is Sabrina Spellman. I'd like you all to know I was in a bad mood yesterday, and I just want to say I'm sorry.
Hello, this is Homer Simpson, a.k.a. Happy Dude. The court has ordered me to call every person in town to apologize for my telemarketing scam. I'm sorry. If you can find it in your heart to forgive me, send $1 to Sorry Dude, 742 Evergreen Terrace, Springfield. You have the power.
Now we can talk about the good stuff in this scene, that being the giant flan, okay? It's iconic. It's definitely one of the most remembered visuals of the entire history of the series. And as a kid, I remember it looking so real. Like, I remember thinking what they actually made a real flan and just put it in that scene. That being said, as an adult, it's obviously a prop, but that doesn't take away from my enjoyment of it. In fact, it adds to my enjoyment because someone had to make a giant flan prop, and that makes me really happy. As a side note, if you have that giant flan prop, please let me know. Also, the idea of the flan is just a really fun concept. It really helps the story wrap up nicely, and it's written in well. But that being said, it does create a lot of questions. Most importantly, how did a teenage girl make a giant flan? Everyone should know that she is a witch now because somehow she produced this giant, like, 7-foot tall flan. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention how much I love the terrible, terrible ripoff of REM's Shiny Happy People playing. I mean, it's hilarious because as a kid, again, I remember it actually being Shiny Happy People. But listening back to it, it is definitely not that. It is, I think the phrase is, look at all the happy people. As a huge fan of ripoff music, I was in heaven because every time any show has to use a song but doesn't want to pay for the song and licenses a fake copy of that song, I just get so giddy. I think we had some of this in Dream Date when a ripoff of Never Met a Girl Like You Before is playing. I love all of these. They're all great. I wish I had a compilation album of just fake music to listen to while you walk. It would be chart topping, at least in my house. But let's get back, because there's only a little bit left in this episode here, folks. After Sabrina marvels at how the world went on while she was gone, she quickly makes a call to Jenny and is relieved that she hasn't cut her hair. She tells her not to do so until they can talk about each individual hair and how to trim it later on. She then tells her aunties that she's in such a great mood, and the aunts decide to celebrate. With flan, of course, because what the fuck else would you celebrate with? It's flan or nothing. A cheerful Sabrina says this is great, great, great. And when her aunts give her some side eye because they think she's being a sarcastic bitch, she notes that she's being sincere. As the credits roll, Sabrina tries on outfits in front of her mirror, not liking anything that she tries on. Her reflection eventually gets bored and just disappears, leaving her as a seemingly vampire because ain't no reflection in that mirror. Of note, one of the shirts she tries on is that abysmal pink sweater from A Girl and Her Cat, the fuzzy one that she wears during the Christmas episode that I really, really didn't like. They decided to bring that back, and I was mad at everyone in the wardrobe department for not burning that thing immediately. But, I mean, that's where the episode ends, and the one thing that struck me right at the end here when Hilda zaps in the flan to celebrate is that in an episode that so centrally features flan, there are so few characters that actually eat flan. I mean, we see Harvey eating some during the Shiny Happy People ripoff. We see, I think the Salem the cat eats some. There's one girl in that montage who eats flan out of like a spoon, like a big giant serving spoon. But aside from that, there really aren't many people actually eating flan. It's like they paid for 50 and they someone had a quarter of one. That is the episode, folks, but of course we now go to our closing ceremonies here on Sabrina's Witch Trials, and the first of which being the rating for this episode of Sabrina Teenage Witch. The TGIF scale I use, of course, the This Good I Feel scale to rate all of the episodes of Sabrina Teenage Witch. This episode was interesting. I mean, it's a very mixed episode. There are some aspects, like the giant Flan, most of Joan Hart's delivery in a lot of scenes, and everything featuring Marty the Monkey, which I love. But then there's a bunch of bland, emotionless acting from Brady Anderson, coupled with all of the baseball butt-licking we see, and even the confusing mirror world scenes. So, for me, this episode lands squarely in the middle of the TGIF scale with a hang-in with Mr. Cooper. Respectable, but I almost expect more from an episode this memorable in certain instances. There is also the Back of the Linen Closet award this episode to each episode's biggest fashion flop, and while I did not like the Harvey Dice shirt at all, it would be totally unfair to give it to the Harvey Dice shirt because there is one piece of wardrobe which earns the Back of the Linen Closet award this week. It is undoubtedly Hilda's ridiculous neon and checkered blouse. I'm telling you guys, you have to see this for yourself. Audio will not do this justice. It is terrifying. I mean, I really do hope Caroline Ray got some sort of bonus each season for having to wear all of these atrocious attires. But I believe with the Back of the Linen Closet award, that is this episode of Sabrina's Witch Trials. I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope this solo episode was a lot of fun for you guys. It was fun for me. I do want to remind you that, of course, you can follow this podcast on Twitter at Sabrina Podcast, on Facebook, facebook.com/Sabrina's Witch Trials, Instagram.com/Sabrina's Witch Trials. You can also listen to this podcast where you are listening to it because that's how things work. But you can also listen to us on SoundCloud, TuneIn, Stitcher, the Google Play podcast section, your favorite podcatcher, all of those places. I would love it if you would review us in the iTunes store. That would be fucking great because all those reviews make me feel real happy and they are super encouraging. Next episode will be a very, very popular one. It's one of my favorites of all time, in all honesty. It is a great little romp where Hilda and Zelda get their groove back. Can I say that? I just did, I guess. Anyway, it's Hilda and Zelda, the teenage years. It features the Violent Femmes for some reason, years after their popularity. But we'll get into that episode next time. It's going to be a lot of fun. And until then, I want to thank all of you for listening once again and tell you that we will see you in the other realm.
Remember that time I got stuck in my own resentment and you didn't lift one finger to help me?
At least you got over it.
No, I didn't.